Hey, what up, Dilo?
What's up? How are you?
I know we did a podcast before remotely, but it's good to meet you here in Scottsdale, like actually in your Star Wars podcasting studio, which is really cool.
Yeah, dude, we're in the flesh. Isn't that wild?
I think the sound went down.
Did it?
Yeah, it turned off.
Yours went down. There you go.
Oh, yep.
Better?
Okay, I can.
All right, here we go. Yeah, we're just kind of messing with sound here. But yeah, welcome to my studio where you're going to interview me first.
Yeah, so I'm actually glad we got this working because I'm like not tech savvy at all. I'm like, if Dilo can't figure it out, we'll have to do it remote somehow another day, you know?
Right.
Which is all right. I'll have to start driving back then. Yeah, but Dilo, good to have you back again. How are things been with you, man?
Things are good. I had leg day today, so I did your workout. What's today? Friday? Your Friday leg day workout.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. It's one of those things that you love. In the moment, you kind of hate it, but then when you get done, you love it again, right? Does that make sense? If you're doing it right.
Yeah, it is one of those love-hate relationships. But honestly, like my favorite day of the week is also leg day. I do it like twice, just like you, like 2 upper body and 2 lower body days.
Yeah.
I don't know, at least you know you're going to sleep about 10 hours the next day or that night, you know, which is really nice.
Dude, I'm ready for a nap now, and it's like noon.
Yeah. I know Dilo wanted to do this episode earlier, but I'm like not a morning riser, so I'm like, we got to push it back, man. I can't do it at even 11 a.m., you know, so he was nice enough to push it back to noon. But yeah, Dilo, I think you're a good case because you serve as like a good example for business owners and how to kind of run a business sustainably without losing your mental and physical health in the process, which a lot of business owners do.
Yeah.
And it's understandable because if you don't have your systems perfect and everything, it does get kind of overwhelming quite quickly. And I was just wondering, you can kind of take over from here, but what your take is now at 51 on kind of how to attend to your health and fitness goals sustainably, kind of like what opinions you've changed over the years, because I've known you've actually been physically active pretty much your whole entire life.
Yeah, look, to be fit at this age it's not a struggle so much in the physical, it's a struggle in the mental. And because of me always being active and fit during the majority of my years, granted there was let's just say a snippet of time, probably a pretty large snippet where I drank too much and I did all the business things. So, you know, people here that sell insurance or might be listening that are attorneys or work in an office or do, you know, all of those things. A lot of that comes with almost the requirement of socialization. And then that socialization just turns into a lot of bad habits, which I was really accustomed to. And to be quite frank with you, now at 51, I'm struggling a little bit on the fitness level. And again, not because of the doing the workouts or eating right. I think it's more, how do I perfect this even more, right? Like, what's the attitude of perfection and not understanding the season of life that I'm really in, because I look at myself as a 30-year-old man. You know, most people, you would walk in and you saw me in person and I'm all shaved or whatever, you would not think I'm 51. Most people, most baristas are like, whoa, I thought you were like 30-something, right? And that's not me just trying to, like, you know, be whatever. That's just how it is. I'm blessed with Italian olive skin and I've taken care of myself. But
yeah, and had a rich diet of olive oil his whole life.
Yeah, right, exactly. Bathed in olive oil the whole time. So, you know, part of the struggle right now, and I talk to you about this on our coaching calls quite a bit, is like, oh my God, am I eating enough? Am I not eating enough? Is my weight okay at this? Should I be, you know, 2% body fat? But no, you know, 15's okay, and I feel better at this. So it's all this experimentation and all of these things. And then, you know, on top of that, as much as you or anybody else is going to tell somebody to not go online and see things, they're going to see things. Mm-hmm. And then we go down these that's how I found you. I saw you, right? So there are good things that come out of that, but you say it in nauseum to me, and you say it on a lot of your podcasts where you're like, you can't, you know a person without actually knowing a person. And the thing is all this advice and all these things that we follow online, those people don't know you. And so I am guilty, just like the next person probably listening to this, at a time where I would go and look at that. And I've tried everything. I've tried paleo. I've tried nomad. I've tried vegan. I was vegan for like 2 years and the sickest I had ever been.
Okay, I think this is the last podcast we're ever going to do together. I did not know that about Dilo, but now since I do, that's pretty shocking. I might not even post this episode, actually.
I was a junk vegan. I mean, even my wife was just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no. But the thing is like when you are looking for instant results and you do those quick fixes, that's exactly what happens. So I would say now what I am learning from you, and I keep learning, is patience and lifestyle and the ability to do less, because by doing less, you're actually accomplishing more. And I'm feeling that right now. And that's really a cool stage of life to be in. And I don't know if it was easier to be unhealthy, but it was easier to be unhealthy, if you know what I mean. You never, that's kind of the wrong thing to say, but in the moment when you're being unhealthy, it was just easier to be that way. If you weren't into exercising, you weren't into counting your macros or understanding what went into your body, the least path of resistance is to go do the business thing and do all the things that just people in that mind frame did. Oh, let's go drink. It's happy hour. Oh, the chicken wings are here. Oh, the pot stickers, like all those things that just added up. Next thing you know, you're 22% body fat and you're inflamed and you don't sleep well, and you might work out occasionally and you call that fitness, but at the end of the day, it's not a lifestyle. It's not a life that, when I found you at 40, I was about 48. Yeah, because I'm 51 now. We've been doing this for a while. I just had decided at that moment, if I was going to pay money to have somebody professionally coach me, I was going to take it seriously and invest into my health and fitness for myself, but also for my family.
Yeah. What looking back at all the fad diets you've done and the online advice, like what do you feel that now in retrospect were like the most bogus ones out there that you thought were like, oh, this is it, man.
Yeah.
Like after I master this, there's no more to it.
Well, and look, these are attributable to me. This is what did not work for me. Veganism, horrible, absolutely horrible. I don't see how anybody can get enough quality protein, let alone for somebody like myself that was, that's kind of got this Mediterranean, background and mix, being part Italian, part French, all that sort of stuff. I just don't think that was in my hereditary genes to just eat, wheat and, things that inflame me. I think I had tried it. There was a guy named Rich Roll that I had, I had kind of fallen in grace with, because he had the same sort of like not drinking anymore story that I did. I've been sober 11 years now, come this June. And when I fell into kind of, again, finding vloggers on YouTube, and it was so funny because I remember that when this happened, we actually had the TV in the other room and my wife was on vacation. Next thing I know, she comes home and I'm like, hey, honey, I'm vegan. And she's like, what are you doing, right? And God bless my wife. She's been through all this stuff. She tolerates it, and lets me experiment. But in fairness to me, what I did, even though I had lost weight initially, and I felt good initially, there had come a time and point where I do blood testing twice a year. I see a doctor that is very familiar with me, understands my test results, understands my blood work, and we compare it year after year and time after time based on the season of life that I am in. And just looking at those blood results, they were some of the worst that I ever had. Just
while you're a vegan, right?
While I was vegan.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be number one. I mean, I don't really think I followed any of these other plans to a T. I think I just kind of mixed like okay, I'm going to try just eating once a day, right? And there was a part of that I kind of liked because I didn't have to think about what I was eating all day, and I kind of enjoyed the misery of being hungry during the course of the day, if that makes any sense. Like just being over-caffeinated and then feeling like I was rewarding myself with food at dinner, not really having to worry about, as long as it was quality food. I think the biggest mistake that people make when they do that sort of thing is they're like, okay, cool, I've got, 2,500 calories left today. I'm just going to go eat a pizza and, some cheesecake and just non-quality. So you could really lose the aspect of actually getting the nutrients that you need. And I like to eat. I just feel like my metabolism fuels when I eat, 3 meals a day, and it just feels better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your take? Like, how's your perception of nutrition changed over the years?
My perception of nutrition is it's a tough one because I'm in the restaurant business. So I own an insurance brokerage. For those that don't know, I insure over 600 restaurants and bars and nightclubs and coffee houses. And let's just say pretty much almost 600 places that I just don't go to anymore, right? And at the end of the day, I'm an insurance salesman. I'm selling, connections to vendors to help them out, to help them make money. And I'm selling protection, that if that place burns down, if somebody gets in a fight, if somebody slips and falls, if somebody somebody has a drunk driving accident. So I had to really separate myself, even though I'm in the business, from the business. And by doing that, I had to take a different look and a different aspect at nutrition. Look, restaurants are great. They're a part of community. You know, you don't always want to just go meet people at your house. Not everybody has an open door policy. You're probably like the fourth person that ever come to my house last night. I mean, we just don't do that. It's a very sacred space. It's an energy. So when you look at a restaurant or a coffee house or something like that, that's a sense of community for me. And I've had to learn to treat it into that aspect and really pull back from feeling like I had to eat any and everything from these places, because I know where they source their stuff. And it's not they're not sourcing it from the places that you have in your book. Just not happening. It's not affordable. It's not cost efficient. At the end of the day, people, these restaurants are businesses. So they can't really, and it's supply and demand. And so the population is not caught up with, hey, we're okay with, paying, $60 for a steak sandwich that's, grass-fed, grass-finished, and, no, flour from, Yugoslavia that doesn't have the, you know what I'm saying? They're just not going to source all this stuff, and it's not easily sourceable, and not enough people are demanding that sort of thing unless you go to a real specialty place. So understanding how the business works and what they do, and just maybe finding those few places that don't make me sick, because now that since training with you, I've really dialed in pretty much like maybe 25 foods that I eat on a regular basis. I get them from Whole Foods. I know where I get them from. It's all the same stuff, same brands, same labels, and I know how I feel. And so if I do go out, sometimes it's an experimentation if it's something off of the grid of the organic places that we do go to. Organic, for what they say. Hey, we don't use canola anymore. We use tallow to put our fries in. Okay, I guess that's better than worse, but you just are going to feel different when you go out to these places to eat.
Yeah, and one thing I try to do, I actually don't do it anymore because I'm always trying to consistently gain weight, as I told you. I'm trying to encourage you to also just continuously gain weight for the rest of your life. But usually just honestly just following like even a carnivore diet when you're eating out. Yeah. You know what I mean? Could work for some people because it's like easy to understand, you're not really going to gain any excess weight off eating meat alone. Right. And it still gives you the ability to socialize, But on the other hand, too, it's hanging out with your friends doesn't have to revolve around food all the time. You know, even getting coffee together is great. There's like 5 calories in a cup of black coffee, so it's pretty much nothing. We're actually drinking coffee right here.
It's good stuff.
And so there are like many other options. I think just kind of eating out and socializing revolving around food is kind of an easy default because it's like, you get served and it tastes good oftentimes. And it does kind of encourage socializing a little bit more, et cetera, but just opening up some kind of broader options, for other people to consider. Like I like going picnics with my mom. Yeah. Sounds cheesy, but it's cool. You get a good view. It's just you and nature, and you get a cool blanket and a little setup, and it's kind of fun to spend time with the family. Still around food, but you could at least customize what you get a lot better.
Well, I think you make a good point, and you don't have to do all the things and go to all the places and all the popular places and that. I think if people, look, most people are human beings. They're not like you and me. And I'm becoming more and more alien as I get older, kind of stepping away from doing a lot of this stuff. My friends tell me so. And you're true alien.
I think you were alien, but forgot your true essence. Now you're returning back to it.
Returning back to my alien body. Right. Totally. And so, when you look at that sort of stuff and you just have your, for the people out there that are listening that are like, well, I still like to go, find your go-to places, really ask, where they're getting their stuff, how they're doing it, and just find those 2 or 3 places. But on top of that, make sure that the service is there. Make sure that the atmosphere is there. There's just a lot of places that people just go to and they mindlessly eat, and then they get treated like crap. And it's like we're living in an evolution of just bad service nowadays in a lot of aspects, in a lot of area. And I think that's just as important. That spills off the energy of the food that you're eating. If the person serving it to you is in a bad mood and not treating you right, and then expecting a 25% tip on top of that. So
yeah, I noticed that too. Like especially like pretty much I would say everywhere but like some Western European countries, I found the service here to be like usually pretty terrible, especially compared to like somewhere like Japan, where it's like A+ all the time. and no tips in Japan either, you know? But here it's like, I just remember one time when I went to Ukraine, this was a long while back, I was like literally the only person in the restaurant. And no one's coming up, and the two waitresses are sitting kind of at the counter just chatting with each other. After like 30 minutes of sitting there, I finally come up and they turn around and they're like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe to order or something, you know?"
Wow.
Anyway, I thought it was more funny than offensive.
That's
I kind of laughed
amazing.
at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know, why is that, do you feel? I mean, you've been in the restaurant business for a long time. Why is it, I feel like, especially, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, the U.S. has like so much opportunity still, you know? It might be getting a little tougher in certain ways, but I guess it's a lot tougher for people to be grateful for their work and stuff of that sort, you know, to have work.
We've made bad service okay. We've become numb to, you know, the ordinary everyday things that we now take for granted. And I mean, remember when people would say, "Yes, sir," "Yes, ma'am," have that open the door, do those sorts of things. I'm not saying that you have to do that all the time or do those sorts of things, but you start losing the old and start bringing in the new. And when you start looking at even I mean, you know, we get, not to get into AI, but that's a whole nother can of worms. But even before AI now coming out and is going to take over a lot of the revolutionized, you know, music and movies and all that sort of thing, even before that, when you just look at the context of the internet and people being able to see wars, like literally wars from their bedroom, you know, or these video games where people are getting pulled out of cars and, you know, beat to crap or raped, or, you know, you start becoming basically numb to all that stuff, and it doesn't become that big of a deal to you anymore because you think that that's what reality should be. I know that's a little extreme, but it's kind of the same in hospitality.
No, it's totally true what you're talking about. I don't think the central nervous system has evolved yet to be able to deal with problems all around the world. No. It's meant just to be like, you know, it hasn't changed since like 250,000 years ago. It's like the same exact thing. Your mind still thinks it's like you're some caveman in a dark cave eating blueberries from time to time and venture out like occasionally when needed. That kind of level of stimulation. But now, I got this from Paul Chek. It's like, I forgot the exact numbers, but basically the amount of information the single individual is exposed to today on average per day is the amount of information a person 300 years ago was exposed to their entire life.
Wow.
Just to give you the idea of how much like stimulus the central nervous system is bombarded with daily. And a lot of times, I mean, we talked about this, I want to get your opinion on it too. Oftentimes the uselessness of following like the news, you know, and how you disconnected from the news and freed up probably, I mean, if everyone did that, they would probably at least a minimum free up like 5 to 10 hours a week of their time, which is already way more than enough to hit a couple of workouts in the gym, no problem, without feeling rushed.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up because that's something we didn't talk about last podcast. So I've been on a journey not to just like physically, you know, have the most in tune physical aspect of me, but also the, you know, the mental aspect of me. And a lot of that came down to making sure that I got back into reading, you know, and reading things that are very difficult for me, like the book that you referred over to me that takes me like a paragraph, you know, a week to read, but still I get a lot out of it. It makes me think. Like I like that stuff. I also like, you know, biographies. I read Eddie Van Halen or Alex Van Halen's biography on, you know, his brother Eddie, you know, called Brothers, and that's great because I'm very much into that. And you get into those stories about people's, you know, lives and what they went through, and you see those similarities. But I also like to read stuff that makes me think about the things that I'm doing in context to my daily life. And I found myself being type A, the way that I am. I found myself very much just being reactive and overreactive to things that just weren't necessary, you know, to always be in that moment. And like you said, you get this over exuberance of information, and it crosses your wires, and then all of a sudden you're depleted. And so what I did is I read a book called Essentialism. It's by Greg McKeown, I believe, and it's got like a circle kind of scribble, and then it's got like a scribble that's like all over it. I really recommend this book for anybody that's struggling with just kind of, you know, simplifying their life and just doing things that are quote unquote, you know, essential. So I read that book. I got through it like literally within a week because I enjoyed it so much, and then I just started implementing some of the things. And so you ask, okay, what are some of those things you implement? Well, again, let's just say what I wasn't implementing before would be I got email on my phone. I would be driving to appointments. I would get to a stoplight. I would literally check my email while I'm at a stoplight, thinking that I needed to respond before the light turned green, or if it did turn green, I'm just being that guy, right? And I'm just like, what am I, So I look back on those moments and I'm like, what was I doing? Like, how could I ever give anybody a considerate response that they deserve, and thinking that quicker was better when quicker was just really just trash, And back to information and the way people are taking things in, I think we've gotten into a situation in society where everybody's looking for instant gratification, and it's like boom, 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 and we know this with social media and this and that, but it's also like response time in business. Like, people treat email like a text message because it's so accessible on your phone. So you think, like, if you get an email, I got to respond right away, or if you get a text message, I got to respond right away. And by reading that book, it made me realize that I just needed to shut the phone down. And what I mean by that is I took all notifications off my phone. I took email off my phone. I check email, 2-3 times a day. Once in the morning, in the afternoon if I'm by a computer, but it's always like physically by a computer, and then at night. And I can give thoughtful and thorough, responses depending on what I need. I've also am in a very good space where 25 years of being in my business, I have a staff. So I let my staff know what my non-negotiables are. And it's like, you guys know I don't check email during the day. If you need something, it's an emergency, we have a internal messaging system that I know I need to check that if they're reaching out to me on that sort of thing. So you just have to set yourself up, in my opinion, I had to set myself up in a situation of success to really dial down my whole internal system, because it was being so overwhelmed. So between waking up early, drinking tons of coffee, working out like a monster, probably working out sometimes 2 times a day, like when I wasn't even telling you, running mountains.
I saw the post, don't worry.
Right, yeah. Not eating.
I know everything.
You know everything. Not eating enough, because I'm thinking, calorie deficit, and I work out 3 times as hard. And then basically being on Twitter, just wondering when World War III was going to start, or who was going to be president, or who was killing who. It was like, what am I doing? I was physically and mentally exhausted.
Yeah, and that's honestly extremely normal for pretty much the majority of the population. I don't have an exact number, and it's so common that people think it's normal, but it's not normal to have that kind of stimulation. You can imagine, like I told you, the central nervous system, it hasn't changed. In 250,000 years, it still thinks you're basically some caveman, eating berries in some super dark cave without any artificial light or anything of that sort. So as a little practice anyone could do, it's like, how many standard deviations are you away from that level of stimulation? And the more standard deviations you are away from that, then it's not going to be surprising if you're always kind of burned out, or have low-grade chronic anxiety, or actually serious amounts of anxiety. And then obviously your body balances out chronic anxiety with depression. Depression always follows close behind a lot of anxiety. And then you get into these nasty cycles of burnout. Then you kind of aren't productive at work, or just a lot of people stress eat, or even do socially acceptable activities, like even become more of a workaholic, you know what I mean, and stuff of that sort. But I think that's important, and that kind of goes overlooked in a lot of programs, because a lot of people are like, okay, I feel terrible, my metabolic health is terrible, my hormonal health is terrible, I just need to eat better and work out more. Yeah, for sure. Those are 2 big pillars. They're 2 of the main pillars out of a couple of other ones. But it's like, if your foundation isn't set, all they're doing is kind of building a house on top of a poor foundation, and then wondering why they can't keep consistent with it, why the house keeps crumbling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They do super well for 3 or 4 months, and then boom, gone for 3 or 4 months, and basically at a negative again, and they got to start over and then do it again. And then it's because of my age and genetics. I'm like, dude, no.
Right.
It's because all of this stuff is messed up, and you've kind of, there's an education component. A lot of people, they want to do better, but they just don't understand human physiology, or psychology. There's that aspect too. But I just think also in the culture, once again, it's kind of very, very fast paced. So fast paced, people think it's normal. This is how people have been living their whole entire life. But really, this is how people have been living literally maybe for the last 50 years, to be honest, out of the 250,000 years the Homo sapien was around. So it's a super minute portion of the timeline. And ironically, like I mentioned yesterday on the podcast, Americans right now are mentally and physically the sickest humans in the history of the human race, you know?
Who's the most unsickest? Is that even a term? If you had to guess, like, is it European?
Oh, you mean as of right now?
Yeah,
as of right now? I don't know.
Some tribe in the middle of
Yeah, probably some tribe in Siberia that's never seen like a piece of electronic like ever in their life, or that people don't even know they exist out there, like some kind of tribes people. But the irony is, like, with a lot of these people living in the wilderness or in tribes, you notice they always have perfect skin. They have great metabolic health, you know? A lot of them don't even know how to read. They definitely don't have a 401k plan and a medical insurance plan.
Right.
But somehow they're still thriving, you know?
And they're not eating ho-hos and zingers and stuff.
Yeah, and then here you have all this, like, trillions poured into the health industry, and it's still like a epic failure, because all that stuff, I mean, it's great for emergency medicine, but the only way to be healthy is to be healthy.
Yeah.
And to be healthy, you got to live like the human being has evolved to live. And that provides a little bit of a dilemma, because it's like, well, then how do I, you know, manage this business, you know, do this. Now you have, with a lot of households, like both parents working, coming home tired, and then supposed to spend time with each other, but then the kids as well, and have your personal time, you know what I mean? It's kind of like almost daunting to think about how to do all that.
I couldn't even imagine. Like, I was definitely not responsible in my younger years to have have children. I didn't inherit my kids until I was basically 39, years old, and that was probably a good thing. But back to the point of when you see everything going on the internet and the news, and now with people being able to create things with AI and other things, that what do you believe anymore, right? And then you get all worked up on something that might not even be real. And so for me, I'm just kind of gotten to this point where the only thing I can control and deal with in the present is what's in front of me, because the rest of it just, I don't even know if it's actually reality.
Well, I guess even the old news, you don't know if it's fake either.
Yeah.
Most of that news is
sure.
even fake too, although they had real actors,
Yeah.
So I guess not much has changed, but lower production cost with AI for sure.
Do you think that they landed on the moon?
I never thoroughly researched that. Some of it looks like super gimmicky. Yeah. It doesn't even look like real at all. It's not a topic. I only briefly checked out some clips here and there and kind of that looks like super goofy. It looks like they filmed it at Hollywood Studio, Universal Studios,
But it's like when you look at stuff like that and there's still kind of a question here or there. I know people probably think I'm crazy. It's like, no, I don't think that the Earth is flat, but it's kind of the same in health and wellness. It's like all these I don't know, say experiments, but all these studies and tests and all these things that are bought by PepsiCo and this and that are telling. Yeah. And it really, like you always say, it just comes back to basics. Like, what are we doing? Usually those studies are to promote a product that somebody's doing, that tell them that, hey, cigarettes are good. Have a cigarette after you work out.
Yeah, I think the influencer model online is to make a villain out of something. It's this anthocyanin or whatever, something in this plant toxin, and then explain the negative health effects if you ate 5 truckloads of that plant, but no one ever eats that much, but you exclude that from your conversation. Right. And then at the end offer a solution, which happens to be their supplement line, Yeah. That's the typical kind of business line along what's your relationship to social media these days?
It's fine. I mean, I'm more of a post and ghost. Like, social media for me is a tool of, being relevant and people seeing what I'm doing. So I'm very much, ever since I was a kid, I had one of those giant video cameras that you put on your shoulder, and I have a lot of recordings from when I was a kid, and I had hair down to my back, mid-back, and I loved all that. I loved, I thought I was going to be an entertainer and all that stuff. I was in bands. So I still enjoy doing that today. I still love being on film and posting my life and sharing that with people, because I don't really hide anything. It's weird. I'm an introvert extrovert. So I'm an extrovert in certain times, kind of like, Batman, I just will go and hide and do my things when I don't want to be around people. But when people need Batman, I come out and, do all that sort of stuff. So I love to post on social media and create relevant material it's always positive. I never speak ill about anything, anybody, anywhere, no politics, no blah, blah, blah. I just don't have the need or how do I say, the characteristics to do that. But I do like to post about about helping people and connecting people and my workouts and my daily habits and animals and all those sorts of things. And so that's really helped me in business, because I feel that my clients, friends, customers, whatever however you want to stipulate, I feel like they get to know me more and more, and it's hard to touch everybody. Like when you're in a service business, I mean, you've got over 600 clients, you can't see them all. You just can't. But they can see you and get a hold of you when they see you all the time on social media. So they feel like they're in your lives and they get to know you, and they're having a piece of you in that aspect. So it's great. And I don't scroll anymore. I deleted TikTok, I deleted X. So really I have my team post on YouTube, they post on LinkedIn, and they post on, Instagram, Facebook. And I probably spend most of my time like on either YouTube or Instagram, but it's literally for just positive stuff or to see what's going on.
Yeah. What do you think is the fine balance between, like being in a service industry and then the irony of the importance of putting yourself first in order not to burn out in your field, Because in a sense, in the service industry, you're all supposed to be all about your clients, but if you make it all about your clients, you burn out and then don't provide the best service long term.
Yeah, you have to really love what you do. You have to love yourself enough to know that when you are working with your clients or you're helping them, that you're actually you're gaining energy for yourself. You feel good about that, as opposed to it being a job, which a lot of people do because they're in it for the money. And I used to treat my career as a job. I would get frustrated when people would call me with a question. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. That's what I'm doing. I sold you a product. I should be answering these questions. But I think a lot of times I would ascertain this attitude that it was like, oh God, these people are dumb. They don't know. And when I took a step back and I matured a little bit and I understood that, wait a minute, I'm the specialist. I'm the guy that is providing something that people need assistance and service in. And so once that clicked with me and I realized that most people don't know a fraction of what I know in my industry, and they're asking me these questions because they sincerely need to know and they sincerely want my help, and that's why they've hired me, it made me feel good. So now when I get that stuff, I look forward to digging through things and answering questions and dissecting stuff, and so it selfishly completes me, and then it also helps them.
Yeah, and I find there's the whole thing, this is like common sense, but it's only common sense if you've been in the industry for like 10, 20, 30 years,
Yeah,
but
when somebody probably asks you like what a macro is, you're like, oh boy, here we go.
No, actually, I treat it with patience because I hire mentors and I'm like clueless, man. And I'm sure the questions I ask them are like beyond ridiculously stupid, like simple, you know what I mean? They've been doing it for like 30 years and I'm sure I'm asking them like the ABCs of their field, And I kind of treat it that way. I always had like good and patient mentors myself. And I appreciated that, because you really honestly just like don't know anything in the beginning. And you might have to ask the question multiple times. Like for me, I have to learn things in waves. I don't know like your learning style, but I kind of like have to read something, then do it for a bit, then read it again, then do it. And usually the third wave, then it's like you totally get it and you don't need, you're self-efficient in that problem or whatever. But
there's always something to learn. I mean, that's the thing. And we're none of us are ever going to learn everything. The only thing that's going to learn everything is the robot, that's right now being formed to kill us.
Yeah. Have you seen that movie Ex Machina?
I've heard of it.
You didn't see it?
No, I'm not.
Okay, damn it. Okay, this is the second red flag already. I'm definitely not like vegetarian.
Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and anything Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I'm wondering any other good AI movies. I mean, technically Terminator 1, 2. Yeah. I consider none of the other Terminators exist in my mind, but 1 and 2 are there. Good. That's technically AI. That's pretty good. What other good AI movies are there?
What AI? Oh, gosh. I don't know. All that stuff just kind of creeps me out, so I just kind of stay away from it.
Yeah. I like that AI robot in the movie Solo.
Yeah.
The liberal female one.
Female robot. Yeah, she's
like, don't let others treat you this way.
Yeah, exactly.
You're, I forgot what she mentioned. You have like a soul too,
She had a crush on Lando Calrissian.
Yeah. Oh, man. I had a friend like that when I went to University of California in Irvine. Totally. I'm
Yeah.
like, damn, they somehow programmed her consciousness into this damn robot. Now she's like, lives on forever.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think that with health and wellness and all the, I mean, let's talk about kind of health and wellness and your aspect and what you think about like all these tools. I'll probably ask the same thing on my podcast, but it's like, do you think people are just, I mean, I know I got into a situation where I just got over exuberated with all the things, you know, the watches, the tests, the this and that. And I now just kind of revert back to just the basics, and I feel a lot less stressed about it.
There's an old saying that my friend used to say that owned a supplement company. He said, "Pills pay the bills." You know, the
Liver King.
Yeah, that's probably what he would say too.
Right.
But the main meaning behind it is all these gadgets and stuff like that they're totally not necessary, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
you can kind of just, if you're super enthusiastic about it, it's fun to tinker with
Yeah.
that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But does it really do anything in the grand scheme of things? It literally does like nothing. They're pretty damn expensive as well. And I mean, I always give the example of my grandmother, you know? She didn't have any health gurus or honestly, Dilo, I don't even know what the hell is out there because I stopped following it completely. I used to go to I still go to a health convention maybe once a year, but I used to go to them like all the time.
Yeah.
And over the years, what I saw is they changed from giving out real health information, like, hey, it's not like as flashy, but you know, you got to eat, you know, like real food. I know this stuff sounds boring and I know you get it, but the thing is, you know, you got to eat real food. You got to sleep well. You know, don't take on stressful work that you don't like. Don't get into the wrong relationships. You know, if work out a certain way, you know, specific to your goals, et cetera. And I know it's not like flashy, but it's the only stuff you got to do, man. And
Right.
like honestly master them, and more importantly, be like super consistent with its application. And that message has faded in the industry because it doesn't make that much money. You can sell books. There's only so much books you can sell,
Right.
telling people to
Right.
do that basic stuff, you know?
Look at the shoe industry. I mean, that's the one thing that's really changed me. Like I was the avid runner, and I was buying the Hokas and the different Nikes and the Air Pegasus and all the stuff because it was cool. And you know what I wear every day now? Converse, because they're just flat. My feet have never
Yeah.
felt better. You know, I work out in them. I work in them. I have like 4 pairs of shoes, and they all sit in the garage, and they're different colors for different days, and that's it. That's simple.
That is really, the economy doesn't like that though.
No,
because
they're $60
reduces
a pair.
it reduces your spending a gargantuous amount. That's why. And yeah, and unfortunately it's also without mastering all these basics that I mentioned, all that gadgety stuff literally does nothing for you anyways. The influencers people are seeing online are literally getting all their results from like either TRT or just like anabolics. That's where it's coming from. It's not coming from peptides or their infrared sauna or going to Mars on a sauna
Cold
in Mars
plunge,
or whatever
right.
the hell is going on these days. They're 100% not getting any of the results from there, for sure. They just usually leave out that part from their recipe of success, you know? And you can see it from a mile away now, but just people kind of surfing online and kind of maybe desperate for some kind of answer that's easy to understand, totally fall for that all the time. And it's unfortunate because it never works.
Do you think it's rare to run into somebody at like my age that's not on, you know, artificial supplements and stuff like that, like TRT and stuff like that?
In the health field, it's really rare.
Yeah.
Ironically, pretty much a lot of the health professionals are on testosterone and plus like other stuff, you know. It's ironic sometimes because they bash the pharmaceutical industry too. But I'm like, that's the industry that's making these drugs as well. But sometimes there's a place and time for it. You know, it depends on how you use it, of course. A lot of people use it to offset poor lifestyle and nutritional choices or lack of education in a certain subject.
Right.
And they're kind of making up negatives with that,
Yeah.
you know? But if you're like on point with everything and you're super enthusiastic about it, and there is a lot of maintenance to it, you know, you do have to stick a needle in your body like 2 to 3 times a week for the rest of your life. So there's a commitment there.
For the rest of your life, that's the thing. Like once you go down that road, you're not coming back.
Supposedly, like, I think if you go down that road and you just stop doing that stuff, and you give it many months of doing all the right things, you can probably bring your levels back up to where they were before doing any of those drugs.
Yeah.
But like I showed you with clients, I've been able to get like 60-year-old clients up to like 800 nanograms per deciliter with their total test, for example. And that is where they would bring you up on testosterone replacement therapy anyways.
Right.
They're not really supposed to take you above that, although many times they do put you usually at like 1,100 or 1,500.
Yeah, well, that's the route we're going. That's the next phase. I mean, I did the competition. If anybody had been watching me online and seen, I did a couple competitions under your direction, and they were great. I mean, it was fine. I was a whopping 140 pounds, and just like everything that you could see was there, and I think. Aesthetically, it was okay, but I was still like too thin. Like you said, the face just gets really thin or whatever. And now that I've been able to eat a little bit more and, just enjoy life a little bit more and take a step back from that, like being more at like 15% body fat and enjoying my life and lifting heavy has been like, it's really been a game changer even at this point in my life where when I was younger, it felt great too. And I feel like I'm back into that space of like when I was a young kid in high school. I have the energy, I have the oomph, I want to get on my wife. I mean, all those things are like starting to come back to me, which is really cool. At 51, it's like a rebirth, but it's back to basics.
Yeah. I hear Kim knocking on the door now.
Right.
She's like,
Yeah, totally.
Just kidding. Yeah. Well, like I totally feel like the most important thing, again, everyone's goals are different and it's impossible to give advice without meeting the person first, but I feel like an important thing, especially is if aesthetics are really important for the individual and also just their metabolic health and composition in general, that their primary form of exercise is weightlifting. And because the main thing that's going to get you to look really old really fast is just loss of muscle mass as you age. That's the main thing. Right. And usually people already have quite a high body fat percentage. So like I think the average American male is like 28% body fat now, where 25 is obese, 20 is overweight, for example. And they have very little muscle mass. Wow. So they go into their 50s and they lose the very little bit they have left and they kind of start looking like a shriveled prune really quickly. And it's kind of tough to make it up at that age, So ideally a person would want to, ideally gain as much muscle as possible before they hit like 55 or 60, and then kind of try their best to maintain it throughout their 60s. And then after that, it's going to be a slow decline. But at least you have so much to work with, So in your 70s, you can be like a really ripped old guy.
Yeah.
As well, so.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I think as I watch I'm very blessed genetically. My parents are both still alive. They're in great shape. And I want to be able to live that life for my kids. You know what I'm saying? I want to be the grandparent that in his 70s that's able to pick up the kid and go golf or whatever, go fishing, do all those things, and not be the parent that's in the lazy boy and yelling at the TV and eating a hungry man. It just doesn't feel good, and you're not feeling good. I feel life is made for living, and I think a lot of times we've again it's societal's norm of creating this box of like, well, when you're 65 you're retired, when you're 70 you're in a you're either in a home or you're half dead or immobile. Yeah, and it's like, wait a minute, like who made those rules, right? And if you look at, as I study a little bit on like shamanism and Buddhism and Eastern, other Eastern philosophies and the things that they do and how the communal sector of family and how they respect their elders because they have elders, because their elders are healthy and they're doing those sorts of things. I'd rather have that sort of a lifestyle than what I would consider this Western lifestyle of just, 70 and sick.
Yeah. How do you kind of interact with people like that are your age and they're like, like very overweight, maybe on 2 or 3 different pharmaceuticals, and they're like, it's because of my age. I know you probably hear it all the time. Yeah. I'm just wondering what your reaction to that is.
I'm a very empathetic person. I don't know. I think everybody has a journey, and if that's their journey, it's not really in my place to say one way or the other. I kind of gave up giving people any sort of criticism and or help unless they ask for it. And you know this, 9 times out of 10, even if they ask for it, they don't really mean it. They don't really care. They're not going to go do the person, the individual has to decide prior to that moment, during that moment, after that moment, to have made that decision to not be the way that they are. They are the way that they are because that's just how they want to be, right? I mean, I was by no, like even when you saw me the first time and I had showed you my pictures and I was pretty much disgusted with myself, you were like, well, you have a good base and you're not really that bad compared to most other people. But I had to make that decision to get to, where I'm at now, which I would consider in the top 0.001% of 51-year-olds at this point. And quite honestly, I didn't change much of who I was or what I was doing, except for the mindset to maybe really track and be a little bit more precise of what I was doing and work a little bit harder with weights. I don't know if you know this, my wife had reminded me, I had given up weights for a couple years, and that's why I was just kind of not looking as built, because I was like, oh, weights are bad for you or this and that, and I was going this whole body weight route. And granted, I think people can obviously maintain some muscle and get some strength through body weight stuff, but the person I was listening to is somebody that was genetically gifted and had done weights before, and they're doing things with their body that's going to take me a decade to even get to that point. When you're hanging upside down, doing L-sits, pike push-ups, things that are just like, that stuff is not easy, especially for a 51-year-old man, just to get one pike push-up when you're literally folding yourself in half. So to put enough strain on your body just with body weight just wasn't working. And I had lost that philosophy after meeting you and talking to you, and then seeing the results. When you're taking pictures and you're looking, every month, and you see your body start to be sculpting, and the one thing you change is because you're lifting heavy weights, you're like, okay, let me get back to basics again and be that what I talked about earlier, that inner child of being, Rambo, Arnold, in the gym, lifting and moving iron. And so, yeah, there's a lot to be said of lifting precisely. Another thing that you had taught me is the preciseness, the movement of the lifts, understanding. When you send me the programs, I study them. I have to read them. I have to understand them. I have to know the philosophy behind them. I don't just go in the gym and say, okay, 3 sets of 10, blah, 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 right? You have to, and I count. I find myself counting, 1, 2, 3, 4 down, and if you have another one there, it's like hold for a second and then boom, pop up, and then 1, 2. So all of that stuff is very important to have the, the constant tension on the muscle that I'm finding and all the things. And I love it. It's fun now.
Yeah, I find once you get into the more advanced stages, it kind of becomes more of like a meditative practice.
Yeah.
Like especially like rep for rep, you're kind of almost seeing everyone's a little different, but you're kind of almost seeing yourself like inside the muscle fiber and just really have this like bubble of focus around that particular lift and have like a story behind it. Like I'm doing this because I'm going to get this result. The chest is going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, or the shoulders are going to be a little bit wider. So next time I take my progression pictures, I'm going to see this kind of difference. And stuff like that. And I think that that vision is critical. Anyone that kind of accomplishes anything, they usually have that vision in their head roughly before they accomplish it. And the same thing needs to be approached with training, because a lot of people are like kind of clock in, clock out, And I'm sure everyone has seen very consistent people that go to the gym always at your time of the day, et cetera, and like they're there probably even longer than you are. And they look the same, like year after year after year. So just putting in the hours is not enough. You have to have kind of like a very comprehensive plan and then a purpose behind that plan, and then also like a lifestyle to support that plan on a consistent basis as well.
It has to be on your schedule. It has to be a date, and it has to be something that is carved out of any and everything else of your day. So when you look at your workouts, they're a maximum an hour. Most of the time, like my leg workout today was 45 minutes, right? And it's tough, right? It's not tough because it's like the workout itself is hard. It's tough because of the amount of rest you get in between, and then, the different things that you have to do, back and forth. I don't like, and it's not for a beginner necessarily. So when you're working your hamstrings on one, and then you have to go do an elevated split squat, 60 seconds later with pretty heavy dumbbells on each leg, you're not feeling that great, but you're feeling awesome at the same time, right? And you're counting down threes and this and that. But what I'm getting at here is like, I don't go to a gym. I do have a second home up in 3 hours from here, and there is I was telling you just a crap hole of a gym that I absolutely love. It's kind of like being in my garage, and you were in my garage last night. So I've got everything that I need right in there, and it's my own private area. I listen to my music because I love music. I have my stuff, my clock, all that. Very precise. It's almost like a surgeon sort of thing, but I'm not sitting there checking email. I'm not looking at, other people working out. I'm not waiting for a machine. I'm not any of that stuff. It's literally on the schedule. These are the things that I do, and this is the most important thing that I'm doing now because I don't want to take any focus away from that. Last thing you want to do is go check your email in between sets and you get upset about something, then you lose the focus of what you're trying to gain or what you're trying to do. And we're talking 4 times a week, people. Like, it's not that big of a deal to take an hour, 4 hours out of your week to have amazing results if you do it right,
That there's a lot of confusion about that too. That's all it really takes, In the beginning stages, you may need, for some people, higher volume workouts because they can't really muster the intensity for that lower volume training. But in more of like the moderate and advanced stages, you could just get away with 4 workouts per week, especially if you're doing it naturally and just kind of really learning to make it like an art form to get the most intensity possible and focus out of those 4 sessions.
Yeah.
And if you do that, honestly, like that's kind of how I train, and I'm eating like elk, deer, all that stuff, and don't even work a full-time job. It's like you're exhausted afterwards.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much, And a lot of people think they have to like spend 5 hours in the gym every day, 6 days a week, and do a lot of cardio, and you don't have to do any cardio. You just lift weights like on a good program for 4 days a week, very consistently. Don't get injured as well. And again, just have that lifestyle that helps support those 4 workouts on a consistent basis. I think consistency is really the king that really gets the results going.
Yeah.
A lot of people I know what Dilo is saying. It's kind of easy to understand at the intellectual level. This is where people lose it too. And they're like, I get it. I'm like, I know you get it. There's not much to get. Like a 5-year-old child can get this and explain it in class.
Right.
But are you really doing it?
Yeah.
That's the real question. And my response for 99% of people, no.
Yeah.
They're not. Because if they were, again, 2025, Americans are mentally and physically the sickest humans in all of human history. Definitely that would not be the case, 100%, you know? And the sad part is like, it's not a huge time investment. It's very easy. And it's way cheaper than being overweight and miserable, Yeah,
no, 100%. I mean, I look at the simplicity, like what you were talking about, of like the old tribes, and you see these guys that are completely shredded with a spear, and they went for a hunt, and then they slept all day and ate, and then they didn't do anything for another 2 days because they had enough food. Yeah. And it's like, how did we get away from that? Well, the industrialization society and everything else, and then, the capitalization of, any and everything that people could buy. I mean, I would have to assume, I'm making a big assumption here because I don't have a computer in front of me, but the fitness industry from a monetary value has got to be in the top 5 of...
Yeah, probably.
From gadgets to devices to programs to, you know what I'm saying? You name it.
Yeah, and the majority of that that income boost is like totally wasteful because it's like not doing anything. No. I'd say like, dude, if you want to really master your health, just basically live like a caveman and have good medical insurance. Yeah. You're gold. Exactly. That's really all you need to do for the most part, Yeah. I mean, I wish I could kind of sound more elaborate to kind of come off more of like a guru. No. Yeah, which a lot of people do, and they overcomplicate something so simple just to kind of sound more intelligent and kind of sell more courses and stuff like that. But honestly, man, it's like I always say, it just comes down to like very consistently applying the basics in a masterful way. For sure. And there's a bit more to this, but I mean, the basics is like sleeping and stress management, getting in the 4 workouts per week, eating real food, you know, and then living close to your core values. That's a great base of starts. If everyone just did that, I guarantee you that would heal pretty much almost everybody.
Yeah, and your core values, they're always prone to change here or there, but it is really good to review them, honestly, on a weekly basis, just to see if you're living by them and what you're doing. And there'll be times that you'll probably shuffle out of maybe one of your core values, and you'll look back and be like, I wish I didn't do that, And a lot of that for me isn't really on the health and wellness sort of end. It's more like on the work sort of end of me compromising certain things to do other things, and then realizing, okay, I know better than that, but I don't, and it's like, I just messed up that core value. I got to get back to, living that, because that's what makes me, happy, is when I'm not trying to please everybody or trying to take on projects or more things that are just like because somebody asked me to, That's another thing too, I think is important for people to understand. Like, you don't have to be 51 or older to be able to say no to things and be okay with it. I would be asked for meetings all the time from people, and again, I'm an empath. I love to help people, this and that. And saying no, you're not being a jerk. You're actually being good to yourself, and to certain things that I think will, for me, for my core value, to give myself more time so that I can actually relax and be more present and be more there for the people that are really important to me. Because as you will find out, most people will try to suck all of your time that don't have what you have, They just do.
Yeah, and I find saying yes, getting in a habit of saying yes to a lot of things you don't want to say yes to, just at the end of the day, just kind of makes you bitter towards that person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And kind of not like that person. And it really is kind of like a two-way road. It's like, A, yeah, they asked you for that, but B, you could have said no, but you kept saying yes, you know what I mean?
Well, here's a great example. This is how Kim and I have gone to live our life, is that we have a lot of friends that we adore, but, at the same time, it's come down to a point, I think we talked about this the other night, it's come down to a point where if you're going to ask me to go to dinner, it's got to be, it's got to be a really good special occasion. It's got to be at 4:00. It's got to be like an organic, healthy place that we pick. And it's got to be something to where we know that we put a timeline on it. And most of our friends that do that now kind of understand what our guidelines are. And the ones that don't, we just don't go out with. I mean, it's a non-negotiable. I'm not going to get home at, 8:00 at night when I'm, every night I'm going to bed at that time, and we need our wind down time. We need our, all those things are very important to not jeopardize. And that goes with travel too. Like Kim and I, we just canceled a trip to Santa Fe because we were going to take, first of all, we won't leave our dogs. We love our dogs. Nobody can watch our dogs. We're neurotic, animal lovers and pet owners. And so that just means that we don't travel. And like you had said on the podcast the other day with Justin, it's like, again, this trip to Santa Fe was going to cost us like $7,000, okay? Because we're going to stay at the Four Seasons, and, the dogs are going to have a place, and, between massages and all these things that we can literally just do here and then sleep in our home and not have to put the dog somewhere and still have our health and not have any questions about our health and wellness, i.e. bad sleep, whether the air conditioning works there. My wife keeps the house at 62 degrees. You think the hotel's going to allow her to go? So like all of these things started coming in her head. So she's just like, I can't, this is stressing me out. So she canceled the vacation. We saved $7,000. Now we can use that money to do things here locally, like, whatever it is. And it's just become non-negotiable at this point. It's like, I don't need to go see, the Alamo or, any of this other stuff.
I don't think anyone needs to see the Alamo.
Yeah, right. I've seen it already, but yeah, I don't know. And for those of you that love to, that love to vacation and do those things and it doesn't matter, God bless you, have fun. It's just not my thing.
Yeah. One thing I don't like about travel either is kind of, especially when you're doing international travel, like going through 30 different time zones and then hanging out in a different time zone for 3 weeks back and then 30 different time zones back. And then you got the food. It kind of sometimes, probably every other time, messes up your, at least how regular you are, then you're walking around like all constipated half the trip and stuff of that sort. So.
I've never traveled international. I'll never do it.
Oh, you've never traveled international?
No.
Ever?
No.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
I mean, Mexico and Canada don't count.
Yeah, I guess they really don't. I guess they don't count. I guess that is technically international travel, but like never to like Asia or Europe or anything of that sort.
No desire, ever.
okay, you're like true American. But that's okay, nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of the countries travel here anyway, so
Yeah.
you get kind of a sample of all the cultures.
I'm good, man. I'm getting back into my tribal self. Like
Yeah.
I live in my area, in my tribe, and I don't need to venture out from that. I'm good. I know where my coffee
Yeah.
house is. I know where my Whole Foods is. I know where my mountains are. I'm fine.
Yeah, I like my very simple morning routine. My dad doesn't get it. He's like, all you do is just hang out in your room all day, and then you go work out, and then you go for a walk at night, and then
Yeah,
you go to sleep.
that's it.
It's like, who lives this way? I'm like, I know many people that live this way. Delo's one of them.
Yeah, trying.
Yeah, very, very economical too, and you can
Yeah.
stay in shape quite easily, actually.
For sure. It's a blessing.
Yeah. I had one random question kind of going back. My favorite burger place is like In-N-Out.
Yeah.
And we talked about like the poor quality service in a lot of restaurants. Like, how do they keep their service like such high quality? I never had like a bad experience at In-N-Out. All their employees seem very energetic and very kind of welcoming.
It's funny, my calisthenics coach just posted a reel on In-N-Out about how he'll go there, and it's the same thing. He's like, they come in, they're very courteous to you. It's something that's, brought the attention to many people. And, in hospitality, it just comes down to when you bring a new person in and you teach them that culture, and that culture is sustainable and everybody has bought into that culture, and they are rewarded not just with a good job, but monetarily they're feeling, I mean, anytime you can go to In-N-Out anytime, you can go at 2:00 in the afternoon, there's a line. I mean, you're waiting, right? But it's worth the wait because most people they just like it and it works. And so, any sort of, there's some higher end restaurants here, granted higher end, but again, there's higher end restaurants that have crappy service, but there's one out here called Hillstone. It's a family of restaurants and they're nationwide. I can go to Hillstone in New York, get the same service that I can get in Scottsdale because I know that they have all been trained with the same mechanism, just like anything else. If you train well and you treat your employees well, they're going to treat those other people well. So that's my theory on that. And yeah, In-N-Out does a good job, especially for fast food.
Yeah. How do you feel? I remember in San Antonio, there's a Japanese restaurant that had these like R2D2 looking AI robots that would deliver your food and drinks to your table.
Yeah.
Do you see that being like a mainstream thing in the next like 10 years where they can kind of just...
Well, I think the closest thing I've come to that was there's a place down the road called Sushi Station, and they have a belt that delivers sushi around your table. Yeah, and you just kind of pick your sushi, hoping that it wasn't on there for 24 hours. I don't know. I mean, I think that's very gimmicky. I think yes, there's going to be a time and a place where robots will cook your food, robots will deliver your food. I still think that hospitality is going to be one of the number one industries because us humans that are still around are going to want to have that interaction with people because we're in front of a computer all the time. We're dealing with artificial intelligence and robots and all that stuff and our cars are robots. I mean, literally the cars drive themselves. We have driverless cars out here that you can get into called not Venmo. Oh my gosh, what are they called?
I'm like the payment processing.
No, not the
company
payment. Now I can't think of their name. But anyways,
I'm like they're really diversifying these days.
Right. Yeah. But you can order one and it'll come right to you and with no driver. And these things are all over town. And it's just a robot. That's a Jaguar that drives you driverless.
Oh, and it has all these kind of like radar things on the top and the sides. Yeah, I've seen like one or two driving around here.
It's nuts.
I thought that was a Google car for some reason.
No.
Okay.
It's something else. It's I can't think of the name, but even Tesla. I mean, for the most part, those are driverless. You can literally put on the driverless mode, and then you got those big garbage cans driving around that are supposedly Cybertrucks or whatever. But that's only going to get better and sexier and easier. And so the point being is that all of this stuff is coming. But I still think there's going to be a need for us to want to go get in that Camaro that smells like gasoline and turn it on and listen to the engine.
Sounds like my car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How much of a local economy do you feel is like just from restaurants and fast food?
Billions of dollars.
I mean, like percentage-wise.
Percentage-wise, God, that's a good question. I really, I mean,
Because it almost sometimes, like from a customer perspective, it seems
Yeah.
like almost every business is just a restaurant or fast food place.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say over half, but I would say pretty close, maybe
Yeah.
40%, something like that. It's up there. I mean, there's a lot that has to do with the economy. I've been blessed to have found a niche in my insurance industry to really work and deal with restaurants and create something that, thank goodness, a lot of people want, and that's our expertise and our added value. So
Yeah. I heard like Red Lobster is going bankrupt. Is that true? Or
probably,
yeah, they are. And is
Yeah.
Denny's?
Yeah.
They are really? Okay. Because
yeah,
I've seen a lot of locations close, but I don't know if it was like a nationwide thing or.
I think a lot of those older concepts are just kind of dying down now. They were very popular with, say, like our parents that would go there all the time and bring us as kids. And I don't think the tradition carried on. Like, I'm not a big Denny's guy. I'm not a big Red Lobster guy. I can't even tell you the last time I've been to those places. I mean, other than the obvious, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm going to go out to eat, the first thing on my mind's not Red Lobster, right? It's some local restaurant that if it's going to be seafood, it'll be like I drove you by, Chula, where they drive the fish in from San Diego, and serve something fresh. I'd rather spend $100 for a meal for me and my wife there, knowing it's fresh, where it came from. I know the owners, as opposed to, $100 for cheese biscuits and God only knows frozen fish that, it's just, and I'm blessed and able to do that. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I see Chuck E. Cheese is still going strong.
Oh yeah.
That place is like
Bro, you
nuke proof.
You can't lose money on creepy costumes and pizza. I mean,
My dad used to take me to that place like all the damn time to play for the arcades mainly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, now I drive by it and it's like, it's so creepy. I'm like, I don't know how I could be so like in a trance as a kid in that place. You know what I mean? With this
Yeah.
creepy, huge, oversized mouse running after you and you're like all about it, I'm like,
I still got the pictures of me like next
imagine
to,
if like McDonald's, the clown walked into your
Yeah.
office, right? How terrified you would be, dude.
100%, dude.
And it's like kids are like,
Dude, that
kids
was the
are, like,
first
all
of
about it, man.
that was the first of the robots. They had those robots playing the drums and all the stuff like in the back there, and they
Yeah.
just kind of turn their head, and yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Or what's that big like purple avocado looking thing at McDonald's they had for a while? It's like the Grimace.
Grimace. Yeah.
Grimace? Yeah. I mean, dude, these characters are like freaking terrifying, man. Just
Dude.
imagine walking around in like some nature place and randomly you're
Grimace comes out. You're
yeah,
like,
it's like
what the?
you're like I am
That would,
totally
that would
dead
actually
right
terrify me now.
now. Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny to see like some businesses kind of go over time and you think they would never go, and then some businesses you think are like the dumbest concept ever, but they just kind of weather the test of time,
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different, how do I say, trends and things that are coming out. Like pickleball's huge now, and you have a lot of people like doing that. It's like, midget tennis, I guess is what I call it. But I just did insurance on a pickleball place. It's 78,000 square feet facility. 'Cause you gotta have-
Pickleball, like the sport?
Yeah, the sport.
Oh, okay.
So it's a facility with a restaurant, and a bar, and it's a social spot. But they have like 20 pickleball courts there, so it's a huge facility for that sort of thing.
Oh, I saw one of those in Las Vegas. I was wondering what the hell that was. I'm
Yeah.
like, why is it called pickleball? Like, why do they call it a restaurant? Because it looks like a restaurant from
Right.
like at least how they built this one.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is like, why do they call it pickleball? Like, what the hell is that? I don't
I don't
even
know
walk
why they
inside
call
of
it pickleball, but I guess it's just like short tennis sort of thing.
Yeah.
I played it once. It's actually kind of fun, but you got to be careful, especially when you're older and if you're not mobile and you've never exercised. That's one way to just take out your ACL and other
Yeah.
things rather quickly.
You got to start with playing against grannies first.
Yeah,
And then
for sure.
progress to
Right.
the younger crowd,
Don't move sideways, just
Yeah.
back and up and down.
Well, where do you see the restaurant industry progressing? What are some huge changes coming around the corner, like especially like in Scottsdale area?
Yeah, in Scottsdale, there's going to be a lot more of the successful restaurateurs opening up more places. There's a lot more opportunities. There's a decent amount of places that are shutting down that is going to open up, B and C locations that will be able to be revitalized. So you're just going to have a lot of great restaurant owners taking advantage of those opportunities, opening either similar or different concepts. Scottsdale's always been a mecca for, food and drink. We have a lot of events here when it's in season. It's not 150 degrees out. And they do very well in season. Summertime, it's a struggle. Probably all my clients will call me, be like, God, we're suffering this summer, this and that. So, they just a lot of times it's hard for them to understand that, come June, July, August, and, some of September, it's just like, it's dead, and so you got to really work the rest of the year to.
Oh, because it's really hot.
Because it's hot, yeah, and everybody leaves here. They're all in California, or they're at their kids' little league,
Okay.
Traveling team, or they're back east, or they're just in more places. But you will notice out here in Scottsdale, like the traffic gets better, and there's a lot of benefits to being out here in the summer if you're a native and you don't mind the heat, which I don't. I love the heat. I can get a lot more done. I can move around a lot more freely. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, well, you have a cool off-road truck. You can probably just move around freely regardless.
That's right, the old 4Runner, or the new 4Runner, the cool front end.
Yeah. No, I was surprised here. It's actually like not nearly as hot as it is in Vegas.
Yeah.
Because it's like basically a blowtorch in your face, which I don't mind either. I actually enjoy the hot quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I was kind of surprised. I thought it would be equally hot here, but it's actually much cooler here.
Right. It was 115 yesterday. Didn't even feel like it to me.
Yeah, it didn't feel, because I think you guys have a breeze, where in Vegas is just like stale air.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Vegas.
But yeah.
It's that casino air.
Yeah, it's that smoke.
Yeah, all the cigarette
The smoke and the illicit activity.
That's Yeah, no, it's a good market out here. Scottsdale is an amazing place. I was born in Scottsdale, and I just see it growing and growing and growing. And there's so much, even around here in the office that we sit in today, that's happening. So there, not stressing about opportunity that is just in my back pocket anyways has been a huge benefit for my health and wellness as well. So,
are there regulations like for restaurants in terms of like whatever you have to run from local authorities to get it up and running? Is that getting harder, or is it kind of getting more lax?
Depends on what city that you're in. Each city has like their own rules and their own ways of being a pain in the what. Yeah.
Yeah. In Scottsdale.
Yeah.
Oh,
Scottsdale, Phoenix, Mesa, Chandler, like they're all different. I have friends that open restaurants in, one city, and it's like, easy. We got our permits. We got all, everything that we need. And then they could be waiting 60, 90, 120 days for permits in another city for the same thing. Yeah.
Any crazy insurance stories?
Oh, I got a ton of crazy insurance stories. I'm actually writing a book right now that's about liquor liability and the crazy claims that we've seen out here. It should be a real page turner. But for anybody that's interested, I mean, in regards to the way our liquor laws work out here, is that if you serve one beverage to somebody that is knowingly intoxicated, you can be liable for that claim. And I've had several claims where an establishment has served somebody one drink and they've been sued, and the insurance company will have to come in and represent them and find fault, percentage of fault on the restaurant, if any. But you still, racking up attorney bills through the carrier, and there's always money to be, paid out in essence to get rid of the case. And that's just not how it works in every other state. Every state has different liquor laws in different ways. But, I have incidents, everything from, a jealous husband coming in and beating up somebody to pulling the fight outside and getting caught up in the car window, their sleeve, and then the guy releasing the window of the car window of this big truck, because he was kind of raised up on this. The sleeve was caught in the window, and the whole body was kind of up on this high lifted truck. And when he released the window and the guy fell, the guy ended up accidentally running over his head.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've had things where people have done things in the bathroom and claimed that they were raped, and then when it came down to it, we found the phone and we found the footage of what had really happened, and let's just say it looked like something out of a porno, of willing, this and that, case closed, right? Because the other attorney had no idea that we had the video footage. And then we just have, other really tragic stuff of people just being overly intoxicated, whether they drink at 1 bar, 2 bar, 5 bars, in their car, they're on coke, whatever it is, and they either, run into a 18-wheeler on their way home and kill them and the passenger, innocent passenger, or they hit, somebody head on in an Uber that ends up dying on, Thanksgiving Eve. It's just sad. The whole drinking and driving thing really, really makes me sad. And again, another reason why I go to bed at 8 and I just don't want to be on the road.
Yeah. Do you feel like the U.S. has become like more litigious over the years, or has it always been like this?
No, it's become more litigious. It's a great way for these attorneys to make money, you know?
Yeah.
All insurances is a pocket for them to make money. I'm not saying that the right thing shouldn't be done and people shouldn't be compensated for, somebody else's misfortune. But speaking of in Arizona, the unfortunate part of the situation is that like state minimum insurance is like $25,000, and that's if that person even has it. And to profile a little bit, most of the cases that I see, most of the people getting drunk and driving home aren't buying an Uber or one of the driverless. I was going to say Venmo again. Damn it! What's the name of that car company? But they're not buying the driverless car to come get them. They're getting in their car and they have either the state minimum limit or they have no insurance, and then they're getting in the accident. And it's like, where's this? Where's the family of the deceased person that they just killed? Where are they going to get the money from? They're going to get it from the bar that has to have the insurance because they have a lease. And is it right? Is it wrong? That's really not the issue. The issue is that it's a pocket of money for these plaintiff attorneys to be able to go after. And then they take 30% of whatever that family or whatever their percentage is, or whatever that family is going to collect. And a lot of times that limit is usually about $1 million. So.
Oh, and then they kind of try to max that out, basically.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting when you first told me that a long time ago, because I thought for some reason, like in restaurants, it would be like someone getting food poisoning. That would be the most common claim or something like that. But then you're like, that barely even happens. It's mostly these kind of like, I guess, what is it called? Incidents relating alcohol in some way.
Dram shop, liquor liability.
Yeah, so that's really random. Like, how is it like, if one person has one drink, they're technically probably intoxicated. Shouldn't they just pass a law where like you could only just order one drink?
Yeah, I mean, you would think, but that's not going to happen either because these places have to survive on, the alcohol they serve. It's just, it would be the same thing. Like, well, if you have diabetes, you're overweight, you can only have one cheese biscuit, right? I mean, free country. It's just, I think the personal responsibility has just gone to the wayside, and people have no personal responsibility, whether it be for their health, whether it be for their drinking habits, whether unfortunately, there's just other mechanisms out there to take advantage of that system of people that aren't personally responsible.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy for me to think like you chose to drink, you chose to drive home using your own car instead of just easily getting an Uber, which is available like basically at any time, anywhere in any city. And then you hit someone, now this restaurant is to blame, or something like that.
And it can adversely affect the restaurant for, up to 5 years, if not, and right away, to where their insurance rate could double, if not triple. And so if you're a restaurant that's used to paying $10,000, say, annually for insurance, and now your rate is $30,000, that's an extra $20,000 you're not budgeted for. For what? For doing what you do, right? You're not going to walk into a restaurant, unless you're in Vegas probably, but you're not going to walk into a restaurant, and most of the time you're not going to see people or bartenders or servers taking a bottle of Jack Daniels and pouring it down somebody's throat willingly. It just doesn't happen. And there's a lot of training. There's a lot of things that go on. I don't see the human element of somebody really like, if somebody's like, I can't talk and they're stumbling, you don't see the servants of alcohol to that person, because most people understand that's not the right thing to do, Even if they have a ride home, you don't want somebody. You've been probably at the banquet table with somebody that's drunk and annoying and loud, and you're just like, oh my God, please don't give them any more alcohol. Get them out of here. Like, it's uncomfortable. Even for the servers, it's uncomfortable. You're not doing anybody any favors in that environment.
Yeah, and I feel it's like a weird, like, double-edged sword, because on the one hand, if they don't serve him, then that person will give them a bad review probably.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But on the other hand, if they do serve him, he might drive home and then get in a car accident. You might be liable for that. It's like,
yeah.
It's like, where do you win there as a business owner? It's kind of a little tough.
Right. Well, if they can give you a bad review, then, they're probably the last thing that they're thinking about. If they're that drunk, they can get on their phone. I just think at the end of the day, most of the people and the generation that's growing up now that kind of understands that, they're very keen to the fact that, these things are happening, and they want to be more of the hero to stop it than just be like in our time where they're like, let's get them, messed up. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you noticed like a specific time period where this like personal accountability thing kind of went out the window?
Yeah.
Or started kind of phasing out?
Yeah, I mean, for as long as I've been alive, I can only contextually say that it's probably since, probably my late 20s, early 30s. I just started seeing more and more of it, just more of the availability to, people just kind of just didn't care. It's just weird.
Yeah. How do from time to time I see those like outrageous kind of claims, someone I think at the Cosmos slipped and fell and they got like $40 million, you
Right.
know? How do they get such huge payouts like that? I presume it doesn't happen all the time and it's really maybe not tough to prove it. I don't know.
There's so many variables and factors on how a payout may or may not happen and what goes on. And unfortunately, some of those payouts should never happen, and it just really depends on, what were the protocols they did or did not have in place, who were the witnesses, what did they say during depositions, if they go, then they roll the dice on what their odds are. If they go to a jury, could the jury award more than what's on the insurance limits? And if they do that, then the insurance company is now more liable than what they had actually contracted to be liable for. So sometimes they just settle because, they'd rather be on the hook for $1 million than, $10 million. If a jury is like, well, this is completely negligent and, we're going to award more than what the limits are. So there's a 99% chance that most of these things are going to end up settling because that's just what the insurance companies do.
Yeah. What happens if it's like your insurance limit's like $5 million and they win like $15 million? Like, where do they get the difference of the money from?
Oh, they get it from the LLC that owns the business.
Oh, I see. Just kind of extract from whatever assets they may have in that business.
Yeah, and when you're in hospitality, good luck. So the attorneys do know that. That's kind of the game. It's like, okay, if they have $5 million, cool. We're going to settle for probably close to $5 million if it's really bad, because they know that anything above, up and above that is they're just going to declare bankruptcy and close the business down. Like, what are you going to get? Some kitchen equipment and a liquor license that might be worth a couple $100,000. Other than that, those hospitality businesses really aren't worth that much money.
Oh, I see how it works. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I can't. In my mind, I'm thinking like, man, just people make a business out of just these false claims, like a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes you see like an Uber Eats driver, like one time I saw like some Starbucks employee spilled, it was kind of even questionable if she spilled it on. She handed it to him through a drive-through window, and he took it, and then it spilled. You know what I mean? I'm like, anyone can literally do that, and then he won like $50 million from that. I'm like, dude, this Uber Eats driver is not going to make that in like 50 lifetimes.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
And it's like he was already holding the cup anyways, and somehow.
And it really sucks for the people that have like legitimate, cases.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things like. That one person ruins it for like the 99 people that legitimately need it, But I guess that's how
every single time around.
That's how it works. So,
yeah.
All right, Dilo. It was great chatting today. I know we went in a couple of different directions here, but it was good to catch up. And honestly, love your office here,
Thank
man.
you. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cozy. Got all my Star Wars stuff and my book stuff and my whiteboard. So no, it's great. Thank you for coming in person and doing this. And I guess on the flip side, we'll talk about some other things. But it's. As I get older, like my friendship circle and the people in my lives definitely get smaller, even though it's big, if that makes any sense. And it's nice to be able to be on your show again and do the work that you have me do, and semi listen to you and then realize that you were right when I don't fully listen to you.
Yeah, it's like I just didn't like his tone.
Totally.
He was actually right, but you know what? I didn't like the way he said it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So it's just like my wife, man. She's right all the time, and I don't even want to admit to it. So, but yeah, no. Thanks for having me on your show.
Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right, brother. See ya.
Bye.